What's up everybody and welcome back to my channel. It's time for a quick recap of what went down on this week's episode of Married at First Sight. Guys, in last week's episode, Brett and Olivia decided to call it quits on their marriage, but come to find out in this week's episode, Brett has been texting Olivia asking to hang out, and he's been giving her unsolicited permission to go dating. Amani comes over to her house to help her pack up the apartment so she can go back home, and she's telling her all this information. I was like, you know what? Brett is such a douche to be playing with her heart like that. You know, he already said no thanks when she said, can we work it out ahead of decision day? He was so smug about it, by the way, and he took all the food out of the house in the middle of a pandemic. You know, like, it was just so bad. And now here he is texting her like, do you want to grab drinks sometimes? Like, do you want to see each other? Blah, blah, blah. And then being like, oh, by the way, I give you permission to go date. It's okay. As if she ever asked him. I can't stand guys like that. This is why after every breakup, you are supposed to block and delete these demons. Like, let them bother the next chick. Not your problem anymore. Meanwhile, Christina accuses Henry of being gay. She's like, I got a text message from a reliable source who claims that he and Henry slept together or dated or something like that. And Henry is upset about this. Of course, he's like, you know what? I think she's using this as a deflection because I called her out on her SHIT last week. Remember, she, on his birthday, went for a walk, quote unquote walk. She was made up to the nines and everything, but she left for the entire night, didn't come back home until about 3 in the morning. And then he confronted her about her lies about where she lived. When they got married at the wedding, she claimed she had a downtown apartment. And then when it was time to go see that downtown apartment, she was like, oh, all my stuff is in my car because I'm between places. Well, are you between places or do you have a downtown apartment, Christina? He was very right to call her out on that. And I guess she was incredibly embarrassed by her lies being clocked, and she decided to, throw out a really big one against Henry, which is very unfortunate. This isn't a little casual lie. First of all, it's bad to make up lies about people, but when it comes to throwing people's sexuality or sexual orientation under the bus, very odd and very malicious. And that's not only malicious against Henry, but also against gay people in general, So Henry tells all of this information to Woody, who could not be any more floored by the information. I gotta say, you guys, though, Henry, he only ever lights up and seems alive when he's talking poorly about his wife. He's always like a Christmas tree, yeah, let me tell you about this bitch of a wife I've got. Moving along, you guys, the flashback of Christina literally admitting to Henry that she is a pathological liar was creepy. I've got to say, she's like, when I was younger, I used to always just make up these lies, just for fun, just to have the drama. I still kind of do that these days, but more maturely, you know what I mean? I still do a little bit of that chaos. I was like, creepy, red flag. I don't blame you, Henry, for not being into her, but I do fault Henry for not just pulling the plug the way Brett did. He already knows. He knew from day one that he didn't want to be with this chick, but he keeps on soldiering forward, and I don't understand why. You don't have to complete the experiment for the sake of it. You already know it's not going to work out with this girl at this point. He also mentions asking Christina to show him the text message so he can get definitive proof with his own eyes. And guess what happened? Of course, Christina conveniently could not find the text message. You can't lose a text message. All you have to do is go to your text and then search the keyword, maybe Henry Gay, and you'll get every single text you ever sent or ever received with those keywords in them. To me, it's 100% proof that Christina was lying and is still that pathological liar she already admitted to being. So all of the couples go to this grand retreat together, which I thought was perfect after the lockdown and quarantine situation. So they're all eating dinner together. And I have to say, guys, I have been over Bennett, Amelia, and their families since week 2 or week 3. Week 1, I was like, oh, I feel like they're gonna grate on my nerves. But by week 3, I was like, okay, these people are quirky, weird, just for the spectacle's sake, because all these grown-ass people were eating dinner with proper cutlery except Bennett. No, he was eating his dinner with a spatula because he's too quirky to use a fork and a knife like a regular person. It reminded me of his annoying sister 2 episodes back, bringing a big big duck to like dinner, asking the waiter for bird seeds. I'm like, dude, this guy is busy. He's a waiter. You know how many like tables he's got to juggle and stuff? Like, no, he can't be bothered with your stupid stuffed animal. And like, I know you don't actually act this way. You guys are just trying to be, you know, quirky for quirky's sake. And I find them all insufferable. I do have to say, sorry, you guys. And I also didn't like how Henry was snickering anytime Christina would talk. Christina was trying to connect with other couples. She was talking about how sad it was that Olivia wasn't there to partake in the dinner and stuff. And Henry's snickering. You know, she made a joke about like, them being couples longer than the other people because of the quarantine situation. Henry snickering. I'm like, Henry comes across as a mean girl to me. He really does. And I think it's because of those women that he's always hanging out with, who are always, you remember at the wedding, they were already incredibly nasty and negative towards his marriage. And so I'm like, you know what? Their attitude has rubbed off on him 100% because he's constantly snickering behind his wife's back. Karen calls him out for just like asking everybody else questions about their marriages and stuff like that, but never really opening up about his own. But he does ultimately end up sharing a little bit. He says, listen, my marriage isn't the best. You know, there are ups and downs. Sometimes there are more downs than ups. And then Christina says that, you know, what she learned throughout this entire ordeal or process was that she didn't want to be with someone who wasn't 100% sure about her. Obviously a dig at Henry. They're both digging at each other, but not throwing in the towel. They're just wasting everybody's time at this point. Woody then says to them both, listen, if it's not working out, it's okay to just say that it's not working out. If me and Amani didn't have chemistry, I wouldn't still be here like dragging out this process. And I felt like good for him for telling people the truth. I really love friends who could tell you about yourself to your face. I feel like everybody needs them. You know, like you're not this noble person because you're suffering through an experiment with someone you know you don't like. You're both in your 30s. You're more than old enough to know what you do and don't want, and this is clearly something that you don't want, so why are you still here? And I loved how in the talking head, Woody was like, oh, they don't want to throw in the towel, but dude, that towel is already on the floor, it is soaking wet, it is miserable, just throw it away. And by the end of the episodes, the couples are tasked with writing letters to their younger selves and then reading it to their spouses. We don't get to see what Miles and Karen wrote to one another, but I would have loved to see it. But we start off with Bennett and Amelia. Amelia's is really beautiful, that she talks in the end about how, you know, young Amelia is going to have the opportunity to marry a stranger, say yes, because he's awesome. And then Bennett's was all about a Pokemon card, so she was disappointed that she wasn't mentioned in it at all, which was the first little kind of, I don't want to say tiff, but you know what I mean, between the two of them. But I hope she felt better watching the episode back because none of the other couples really talked about younger them. By the way, we also didn't see Woody and Amani's. Hopefully we see it next episode. Christina and Henry's are next, and hers is like some sob story where she 100% victimizes herself. Henry wasn't buying it, and then his was about, you know, having good judgment and how younger him should learn to play guitar and to sing because then he would rule the world. She was disappointed in it, and I was like, what? How could you be disappointed in his not being super like emo, especially not towards you, when yours was all about yourself as well? I don't know, this couple just annoys me. Go home, Roger. Why are you guys still here? We don't need you. Take the Brett and Olivia route and keep it moving, and then we'll get more footage of the other couples actually trying to make it work. Quick note, I have to say, I'm really happy to see Miles start to question whether or not he wants to be in his marriage to Karen, because you see him give, you see her take, and complain. I understand people wanting to take things slowly, but she's always looking to nitpick him, and that gets tiresome after a while. Like, this guy is going through a pandemic, the virus pandemic, the racial pandemic that was, you know, really coming to a head at that time, and she never once seemed to have checked in on him or cared to check in on him, and he kept reaching out to her. Like, we saw him getting up early to cook her breakfast and lunch for work. He was getting ready to cook dinner. He was cleaning the house, cleaning out the bathtub so she can have a bath when she comes. He's so freaking considerate, and all this woman does is take and complain. So he is 100% well within his rights to start to wonder whether or not this is even for him. You know, he's given so much of himself to this marriage and not really received that much back. And it's like, listen, you might not want to sleep with this guy yet, but you're not even holding hands with him, cuddling with him at home when you guys are watching movies. Like, we saw him keep trying to reach out to her, but she kept like pushing away. She'd be texting on her phone, like just not engaging. Like, nothing, girl. Miles, you are you are a champ. I will tell you that much. Hopefully things improve for them. But, you know, again, good for you, really thinking about what it is that you deserve to receive back from your spouse. Guys, that's it. A recap of this week's episode of Married at First Sight. But as usual, I'm more excited to hear what you have to say about everything. So please make sure to let me know all of your thoughts and opinions in the comment section down below, and we'll chat. That's all for now. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.